Alright, my editing skills are crap, but can the same be said for Transcendence? Stick around and find out.
Web, 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 web. Nove review, nove review. Wow, shall bow down. Nove review, red, web, 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 nove review. Nove review, nove review, nove review.
Okay. I'm Peter Franzen from ChristianGeekCentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions with an uncut review of Transcendence. In Transcendence, Dr. Will Castor, played by Johnny Depp, hopes to develop true artificial intelligence capable of processing more information than every human being in the history of the world combined. His wife and partner, Evelyn Rebecca Hall, you guys might recognize her from Iron Man 3, dreams of using Will's breakthroughs to make the global environment healthy again, as if it was untouched by human hands and technology. His colleague, Max Waters, played by Paul Bettany, dreams of using this new technology to prevent and cure all forms of human sickness and degeneration. A truly self-aware AI at this point in the story has not been possible. But it's suspected that it may be if a human mind is imprinted onto an existing AI, that would allow for emotion and morality, the currently missing ingredients, to be added into the mix. This radical idea is still in the early stages of testing, but when Will Castor suddenly finds himself facing death, it's decided to attempt the procedure on him in an effort to save his consciousness. Soon after Will's body perishes, the imprint of his mind begins seeking more and more processing power and control, developing new technologies with lightning speed and quickly becoming unstoppable by anyone. If Will Castor's consciousness, his very being, is truly now contained within a series of processors, well then perhaps he can be ultimately reasoned with and his goals understood. But if this strange intelligence that they're dealing with is not Will Castor, but just a really strange simulation of him mixed with the, just ones and zeros, well then the entire world may become subject to an unstoppable computer program with nearly limitless power. Alright, well, despite whatever impression you may have gained from the trailers of this movie, this movie is a sci-fi drama. Not a sci-fi suspense thriller, certainly not a sci-fi action film, sci-fi drama. So for this reason, the pace may seem slow if expectations are not quickly adjusted. However, the story or characters are always developing, always moving forward, I felt, and I was never bored for a moment. The cast is made up of familiar faces in addition to its star, all of whom perform well, including a vastly underused Morgan Freeman. Rebecca Hall, a more and more familiar face, seems to be a rising star, and her performance as the lonely and mourning Evelyn Castor is easy to sympathize with. Given the heavy subject matter of death and mourning, I would have loved to see this movie take the dramatic aspects even further instead of relying on its sci-fi aspects. I want people that make, fantasy and sci-fi like, no, we can deal with heavy drama too. We want that too. At least I do, But it seems like the heaviest drama, like the Academy Award type drama, is still just left to these straight up dramas, when I think there's such great potential for that as well in the genres of fantasy and sci-fi. So I'd love to see a sci-fi movie given that kind of serious character drama treatment. But as it stands, the drama in Transcendence was still very strong, very involving. The tone it's not quite creepy, but it's unsettling in a classic sci-fi kind of way. So maybe like a Twilight Zone way. In some points, as more and more people come under the influence of the Will Castor artificial intelligence, the feeling of like pod people or children of the corn becomes stronger and stronger. So there's some kind of eerie stuff like that. Yeah, eerie, that's a better word than maybe creepy. The movie begins as what I would call light sci-fi, but then quickly transitions into heavy sci-fi. So in other words, it's never really a flashy visual type sci-fi, but it starts out being like in the realm of, okay, I can almost see this happening in the real world, to like going to places where it's like, whoa, okay, this is way crazy. Not in the sense, like I said, of being flashy and futuristic, but in the sense that some pretty wildly creative and fantastical scientific concepts are dramatically explored, though not explained. It's not a movie full of a bunch of technobabble. For some viewers, the swarm of nanites flying around on their own, performing virtual miracles with very little to no explanation as to how they're doing it. For a lot of people, I think that's going to fall into the same category as magic, and they're just going to like kind of check out and be like, okay, they've totally gone over the deep end, But I mean, for people that just like crazy, imaginative, go anywhere sci-fi, it's going to be a lot of fun. The visual effects, which increase greatly in frequency during the second half of the film, do a great job of depicting, well, nanite swarms that can intelligently fly through the air. And since we all know what that's supposed to look like, I'm sure everybody's going to feel the same way about that. But I do appreciate it when films use CG for the unreal rather than heavily leaning on it to represent the real. I think that's where CG tends to fail until that great and distant day when it is perfected and totally indistinguishable from physical objects put in front of a camera. In this movie, CG knows its place and it does its job well. I think this movie unavoidably demands that the viewer wrestle with, if not personally, at least intellectually, one or two philosophical issues regarding human nature. The nature of human life is not just a theme in this movie, it's the question on which the plot and drama hang for the entire story. And that's really a kind of a unique thing. I love sci-fi and fantasy movies that have these kind of interesting themes woven in that the filmmakers are exploring. But this is not just kind of a theme running in the background. It's perfectly united with the plot, which is really interesting. I don't know if I've seen another sci-fi movie that, very few, maybe Dark City, exploring a similar theme, does kind of the same thing. But I don't think in any other movie that I've seen the tension hangs as much on the question of the nature of human life and as it does in this movie. When Will Castor, and like I said, there's some other kind of interesting themes that pop up here and there. One of them is when Will Castor is describing this vastly superior intelligence, this AI that he would like to create, and just how much more powerful and intelligent it will be than every person on the face of the planet in all of history. An attendee of the lecture, asks him, "Aren't you trying to create your own god?" To which Castor replies, this is a bit of a paraphrase, "Isn't that what humans have always done?" And this seemed to me like an indirect way of saying either, yeah, and I have no problem with that idea, or, well, humans invent their own gods to worship, which are not real to begin with, so your question is meaningless. This seemed to convey that Castor, as a character, is likely an atheist or a naturalist, although this isn't necessarily the case. It is our natural tendency, I think, to manufacture gods that look and behave a lot like us, whether we're doing that from scratch or whether we're taking an existing religion and we kind of choose to see that god in a way that fits our preferences. Rather than the source material, like, for example, the Bible. We can kind of decide that God is a certain way and kind of just to choose to ignore or not really look into what the Bible has to say about God. We can just kind of come up with our own ideas about what God is like, even as Christians. A repeated question that one character asks an AI under two different circumstances receives the same answer both times. It was an interesting question. The human says, "Can you prove that you are self-aware?" And the AI says, "Well, that's a difficult question. Can you prove that you are?" I think the term self-aware muddies the waters a bit, though. The real question that the drama of the story hangs on is whether or not an AI can possess the same degree of individuality and worth as a human being. The big question this movie is really asking is, are we more than the sum of our memories? That's a question that Dark City, I think, asks as well. Or are we more than what can be measured and accounted for physically? To save his life, Will Castor allows his mind, which mind defined in this movie is a pattern of electrical signals. That's a mind in this movie. So he allows his mind to be uploaded onto a computer. That's the term they use, is uploaded. Now, very cleverly, the story has Will Castor die at some undefined point, it's not really clear, during this uploading process. So why is this clever? Well, because if the upload had finished, and Will Castor was still alive after the upload had finished, then we would undeniably have two Will Castors. One we would call the original or real Will Castor, the guy that's still breathing, and the other we would call a copy, the machine version. Then, even after the real Will Castor died, we would still think of the machine version as the copy, not the original, because we saw them both at the same time. This machine version, we would say, is not the real Will Castor. Now compare this to a movie like The Sixth Day, in which we see a clone and its original briefly conversing with each other before the original dies. The clone has all of the original's memories and even seems to have its personality. That's kind of a whole different topic, but we would still call it a copy, I think, and not the original. So back to this movie, by having Will Castor die sometime during the uploading process, the story can subtly present the idea that Will Castor was not copied, but was instead somehow transferred to the computer. In fact, the title of the movie, Transcendence, doesn't suggest copying. It suggests a single thing moving from one place up to another. In my mind, by using the expression upload, which they do in the movie, to describe the transfer of Will's consciousness to the machine, the movie unwittingly rules out the possibility of the AI Will Castor being the real Will Castor. And the reason? Uploading, if you think about it, does not involve literally moving something from one place to another, but creating a copy of something in a location where it does not already exist, such as when I upload a video to YouTube or upload a podcast to my online server. I've still got my copy. It doesn't go away unless I, click a box for it to be deleted after it's done uploading. But it's not actually moving anywhere. I'm just copying it in this new location. I think for most of the movie, the mood and tone strongly suggests that the AI Will Castor is not the true and original Will Castor. That's kind of a point of suspense and tension for most of the movie. However, enough mystery is maintained throughout the movie to make this a difficult conclusion to really finally settle on. For example, Will Castor has a somewhat dry personality while living, which makes his machine-like personality afterward understandable. It's not all that different. I immediately thought, well, he's acting robotic, but then I thought, oh yeah, he was really kind of, flatline in terms of his personality when he was alive. So that was really clever on the part of Johnny Depp and the directors to do the director to do that, and maybe the writer too, if it was included in the script. As a machine, Will Castor is behaving very differently than he did in life. But you could argue that he's under very different circumstances, which may call for radically different behavior. In fact, they argue as much in the movie. They keep you kind of wondering back and forth a bit. Now, a moment near the end of the film suggests that the AI Will is not the true Will Castor. It suggests that, and I think strongly. And this suggestion is implied to be a bad thing because it's underscored by very ominous music, And if it was the real Will Castor, I think we would use pleasant music to indicate, isn't it great that he's still alive, But no, it's this ominous music that imply that, it's the cue they were giving us is that it's not the real Will, and this is a bad thing. Bad things are going to happen. However, another moment near the end of the film provides great emotional catharsis and relief to the viewer, but only if he or she accepts the idea that the AI Will Castor is and always has been the real Will Castor. To deny that the AI Will Castor is the real Will Castor means the viewer must steel themselves, just harden themselves emotionally against a very emotionally satisfying moment in the movie. Now, because of this conflict in the storytelling, I'm left wondering if the filmmakers themselves ever came to a conclusion about the nature of the AI Will Castor and what it really is, or he really is. Maybe they didn't, and these conflicts that I'm sensed in the film were purposefully done by them because they felt postmodernly profound or clever or something to them. But if this is the case, and I don't know if it is, but if this is the case, I'd like to suggest that contradictory, self-defeating logic should never be confused with the profound or clever. I think that's a bit of a mistake in postmodern art and entertainment and storytelling. I think what makes a mysterious plot clever is the fact that it mystifies, but can still ultimately be understood given enough logical examination. To sum up, Transcendence is a great movie, just on a pure story experience level, with characters that are easy to care about and a plot that is fascinating to follow. It scratches some great classic sci-fi itches using new ideas, and it keeps you guessing, I think, until the very end and beyond the end. It could have gone the extra mile to make the drama intensely moving, but settles somewhere shy of that, which is fine. Still a great movie. The movie is also extremely ripe, if you couldn't tell from the way I'm talking about it. It's extremely ripe, I think, for a worthwhile discussion, and almost unavoidably brings worthwhile thoughts to mind. The PG-13 rating makes this movie accessible to lots of people, including lots of Christians, and I'd highly recommend it as a conversation starter for friends or groups who are interested in putting human nature on the table for examination, dissection, and discussion. It's rated PG-13 for sci-fi action and violence, some bloody images, brief, strong language, and sensuality. I give it a quality score of 9.0 out of 10, and a relevance score of 10 out of 10. Please do like, share, and subscribe if you like, want to share, and want more. Also, please leave comments below about what you liked or what you would change, except for video editing. That ain't going to happen unless you're volunteering yourself. For more information about our scoring system and tons of other content and community, visit ChristianGeekCentral.com. I hope you'll join us there soon as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. There's the button.